Welcome to the Generous Business Owner Podcast, where business owners gain inspiration and encouragement to live a legacy, not just leave one. And now your hosts, Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's Generous Business Owner Podcast. My name's Jeff Thomas, and I've got my trusty sidekick with me, Jeff Rutt, today. Say hello to the people, Jeff.
Hello to the people.
And we have two very special guests with us today. We have Tom and Chelsea Lernihan, married couple with 4 kids. Tom is the Chief Investment Officer for his fund, and we'll hear all about that. And Chelsea runs kind of the related family donor advised fund called MIGMIR, and she'll tell you about that supports Chicago and many international operations beyond that. So really a cool young couple to talk with today. Welcome to Tom and Chelsea.
Awesome. Great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
You bet.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff, kick us off.
Yeah, so glad to have you. This is a really special time to have the two of you share a little bit about your story. Maybe Chelsea, start us off, and then Tom, tell us about what the early years looked like in your families related to your faith journey, related to this whole space of investment and donor advised. What was the upbringing? What did that look like in the early years? But yeah, just give us a little bit of background of your family and journey during the early years. Chelsea, start us off.
All right, I'll start us off. So my background is I'm from Indiana, and I was lucky enough as a kid to have friends in the church at a young age. That's where we hung out. I didn't necessarily live. My family didn't necessarily. I didn't come from a family of faith, or we didn't go to church as a family. But I was lucky enough to have friends that grew up in the church, and I got to go to church with my friends and really just formed a faith with Christ at a young age. And I remember, it's really cool to look back now, but I remember as a kid praying that I could have, that I had a husband someday, or a family. I was part of a family someday where faith was just a common point of conversation. And it's really neat to see how just God has provided and how God has answered those prayers, as Christ is just a part of our whole lives now, and obviously leads just how we parent our children now, and is very much in our home. And it's just really neat to see how God has answered those prayers. And so moving on, Tom and I met at Purdue, which was such a blessing. And then we moved to Chicago after Purdue. I'll let Tom kind of fill in some of those gaps. We moved to Chicago after Purdue. And when we started having kids, Tom's parents started what we call MIGMIR. So it stands for Much is Given, Much is Required. And it is a donor advised fund that supports Christ-centered ministries that meet spiritual and physical needs in under-resourced communities in Chicago, East Africa, Central America, and Southeast Asia. And so when I was home, we were starting to have kids, and really I had talked to Tom's parents, and they were wanting to grow their international arm. And that was really always a passion of mine, just international organizations from actually a child. And so it has been an honor and a pleasure to get to work alongside his parents and really get to lead the international efforts at MIGMIR. So there's a lot more I could say around that, but I'll let Tom kind of fill in there from there.
Wow. What a beautiful journey. Yeah, Tom, tell us about the early years in the Lernihan household.
Yeah, absolutely. So grew up suburb of Chicago, an older sister, a younger brother, and we grew up part of the church. We grew up Catholic, go to church every Sunday, went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, and then ended up going to Purdue. And it was kind of my first season of life where I wasn't told what to do or where to go or where to be. I had a little bit of freedom. And in that season, it was probably the most distant I was from any sort of meaningful faith. I ended up just getting connected to a group of people that wasn't an important part of their life. But my junior year, I met Chelsea. We started to get serious and dating. And she sat me down one day and said, if we're going to continue dating, if this is going to be a thing, and if we can eventually get married, I need to be with a man that has a deep committed faith. And it was through that conversation, through Chelsea, and through her upbringing that it created a new faith journey for me, which ended up getting us plugged into a church in Chicago after we got married and moved to Chicago, and really just been a beautiful journey ever since. And as Chelsea alluded, after college, I got into a career outside of the work that we do now, but it was several years ago that my family had an exit from a business that my father had started, and started to think about how we should steward these resources according to his goals, this being God, not our goals or desires. And so we ended up naming an investment fund that we run now called His Fund. Is a daily reference that these are the Lord's resources, and we're to steward it in a way that brings Him glory and honor, and how we do that. And I can dive into those details further, but it's a little bit about my upbringing.
Yeah, why don't you expand on that a little bit, and then we'll kick it back to Chelsea to talk more about the giving arm. But talk about the maybe the profit making arm first, and tell us more about his fund. What's the structure? Do you take outside investment? Is it just private investments? Is it public? What does that look like?
So his fund is a private single-family office structure where we're investing in Christian founders that are meaningfully shaping their business with their faith. They have a social venture in the work that they're doing. They're trying to advance some social cause in the business. And the thing that we get most excited about is the venture has an opportunity to create sustainable employment for marginalized communities around the world. So that practically comes out through an early stage venture structure. About half of our investments are international, the other half are US based. We're often a minority participant alongside a wider range of investors, really trying to encourage and support and activate really awesome kingdom leaders that are using business to tackle poverty and the major social issues of our time.
Well, okay, since I'm an investment geek, I'm going to ask you a couple investment geek questions. And you already started down the road in a great way in terms of the minority, because I was going to ask minority or majority. And are you usually making these then I'm guessing as LP investments, but are they through funds generally, or are you trying to kind of do direct investments and sort of dig them up yourself, you know?
We do a bit of both. So
Yeah.
about half of our investments historically been in funds, often Christian funds that are aligned with the values of what we're trying to accomplish in our direct investments. But then the other half are direct deals that we've curated through a network of folks that understand what we're trying to do. Yeah, and so we facilitate a bunch of different investments through different vehicles, but we have a wide structure and range in how we deploy capital.
Well, before we started recording, we were joking about um, you know I met your dad in maximum security prison, which we were visiting, for those listening. Thank you for listening to that part. But we got a great friend of the show, Pete Oakes, who runs a manufacturing business there in Wichita, in a maximum security prison. It's just an amazing business, an amazing leader. But met your dad there, and I remember him telling me the story of the business, that sort of family business. And at one time, that business had a lot of employees, didn't it? I don't know if you remember the exact number, but it was in the thousands, wasn't it?
Yes, Greg, my father had started a business back in 2001, and the Lord blessed it tremendously, way beyond what anyone would have imagined. He grew it until 2012, and at that time, I think he had 1,000 or 2,000 employees, and it's continued to grow after a private equity firm invested capital, and now it's several thousand. It's a fantastic company, really amazing culture, and a great story, and really been fun to be a part of it and watch the journey. And it has created this beautiful blessing of financial resources that we now get the ability to steward and deploy in a really fun and exciting way. So it's been a great journey.
Well, so I think it's really cool that, I mean, it's very easy to, frankly, take that money and sail off into the sunset, and kind of disappear. But there is a sort of movement, in sort of faith-driven investing, if you will. And I'd say you guys were ahead of the curve. Before that was a term, you guys were doing this. And this idea of sort of re-risking, I kind of like that term of re-risking, not just sort of putting it in a barn and clipping a muni yield off of it, but putting it to work. And if you're doing venture fund activity in international markets,
Mhm.
that definitely has risk associated with it. So how do you think about that? The reason I kind of brought up the employees is, your family has experience running a scaled organization. I think that's very unique, and the faith component. Can you talk about how those two, the faith motivation and the business experience, kind of coalesce to find the kind of things you like to invest in?
Yeah, absolutely. They're definitely correlated. After the sale of the business, we really felt compelled on one thing that poverty is a complex issue. There's a bunch of ways to address it and tackle it, and no one is perfect by any stretch. And we need grant capital, investment capital. So that's kind of the basis. But what we feel really compelled by is if you support sustainable employment, you create opportunity where there isn't much. It goes a long way in tackling some of the big problems, addressing communities that are and suffering poverty. And so that was something that really compelled us family as business people, as starting business, seeing the impact of that work and how it can influence, in this case, my father, thousands of employees and their families. We really wanted to see ways that we can deploy this capital in a for-profit company that does this amazing work that isn't set up in a vehicle that requires continual donation or support. And so that was just something that we latched on. I'm doing this for a number of years now, but there were several others that we followed. There were great examples of what it might look like to use investment capital for kingdom purposes. And we just got started and started saying, what might this look like if we deployed a venture capital strategy? And it's been really fun. We've learned a ton along the way and are having a blast doing it.
Jeff, right? You got what do you say? What do you call the J&J strategy?
Well, the jobs in Jesus, right,
Jobs and
Tom?
Jesus.
Chelsea? Yeah,
So
jobs in
Tom,
Jesus. That's
see,
what they're
we're
talking
very
about.
simple guys,
Absolutely.
Chelsea and Tom. We okay. We feel like Chelsea's involved. She's in charge of Jesus, delivering Jesus, and you're in charge of delivering jobs. But you got to have both. Okay, you can't just do one without the other. So we'll get to you, Chelsea. But sorry, I just Tom, would you share one story, maybe or two, of maybe a success story of, or even a failure? It's okay too, of something you've invested in, just to give the listener an example.
I'll share both because it's
Okay,
really
great.
there's so many. We've had an opportunity to partner with so many organizations, and they're all incredible and they're right. But I'll tell you one. There's an organization that we partner with that is trying to create employment opportunities in Haiti. And it's a woman that started this organization. It's been around for a very long time, and the business first started by training artisans how to create shoes from tires, and then also create really high quality handbags. And the business has been around for a long time. It's a nonprofit. They're training these locals what it might look like to be employed in a really beautiful way. And unfortunately, that type of business is really hard to operate, really hard to run. It's hard to sell and get customers in the US to value that sort of work and get their attention. And so it struggled for many years. It struggled. And we continue to invest and support and iterate ways that we can expand this business. And then eventually the business pivoted. It found a new structure through creating and supporting shoes for local children in Haiti that are being sponsored by Christian organizations, primarily in
Perfect.
the US. And
Hmm.
it was this pivot that totally took off. And now the business that had been struggling for so long, it finally found its lane, it finally found its niche, and has a repeat revenue structure where these Christian ministries can now use the money that would otherwise go to shoes that would come from another source to supporting work in Haiti, bought by
Right.
Haitians for Haitians.
Just
And it's
buying the
just
shoes
been
alone is helpful
Oh, it's
to the
amazing.
mission. Yeah.
And so it's just been this awesome story to watch this team really stay passionate and focused, go through all of these struggles and see a light at the end of the tunnel. It's been really fun. That's one example of a story that's kind of been through the ups and downs, but we're excited to be a part of it. And there's many others as well that I could share. It's been a joy to be a part of.
Well, and of course, like I said, you guys are ahead of the curve on this faith-driven investing journey. And I think one of the things that's happening with, Henry Kasner and his team at solving the world's greatest problems is they're talking about um, scaling a model, if you will, that you've already been working on with your family for quite a while, which is also the partnership. So let's take, poverty. I mean, there's a lot of pieces of that that you guys know better than I do, but for-profit dollars, there's a lot more of those, okay, than charitable dollars, but for-profit dollars that can help solve that. But that doesn't mean you don't need the charitable dollars. And so, Chelsea, let's kind of kick it to you for this. People, I think most people listening to this are generous business owners, okay? And I think I know I feel this way, and I've talked to many others where making money is frankly easier than giving it away well. So I think actually giving away money, the donor piece, is equally as important and often harder for business people. So I think this is really interesting. If you don't mind talking about the structure, kind of how do you decide where to give, and maybe what are some of the examples of what's going on at the donor advised funds part of this?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the donor advised fund, we're kind of split up, like you said, in Chicago and internationally. And really, when we first started, it was primarily around economic development efforts. And so anything that are working with individuals in poverty, or that are facing injustices, and supporting efforts towards financial freedom. So I loved how you said, Jeff, jobs and Jesus, because I think that's so much part of, how can we create economic freedom, and, work with organizations that are teaching vocational skills for individuals that are in poverty, for both just to create, generational change within a generation for families that just, but how can we do this in a way where we are also sharing the gospel? So
Right.
I think we look at for organizations who are not just creating financial freedom, but really using that as a vehicle to share the gospel. And so, I think when I look back, I think, God was generous with us first. He gave us life. He gave us, resources. He gave us time. And so how can we be good stewards of that? It's something that, I continue to try to think, how can we teach our kids this as well? But how can we be good stewards? And I think on the nonprofit arm or on the DAF, it's not always going to have, we talk so much about impact, one of the things we're continuously trying to figure out is impact, and how can you use the dollar for the most impact. But sometimes that's just not the story. And God calls us into just the deepest, hardest places that you're not going to have the highest impact for the dollar. And that's something that we continuously try to figure out, whenever we're trying to steward the resources well, of, is this the best use of the funds? Where is God calling us to? And, sometimes just the numbers aren't going to tell the story of what God is
It's
actually
not
calling.
all about the financial return.
Exactly.
So discerning what the other factors in return are, and weighting those appropriately with God's help, because it's His, right? I mean, I love the way you're
100%.
saying that. It's just there are trade-offs, acknowledging there are trade-offs.
100%. And so a
Yeah.
lot of that is just time in prayer and time of letting the Lord guide us. And I continue just to say what a blessing it is to connect with the work that God is doing all across the world, and being able to meet people in so many different corners of the world that are sharing the gospel. And I just get to be a small, token of the work that He's doing, and trying to steward the funds that He is already planning in these corners of the world. So it's a
Well,
blessing.
we're going to put you on the spot like we put your husband.
Sure.
Tell us one story, if you don't mind, of something you've been involved in that comes to mind that's been kind of fun in this category.
Yeah, well, I'll share one that actually I'm going to Uganda in 2 weeks, because I get to be part of a groundbreaking at a vocational school for, a business similar actually to what Tom was sharing about, a business that had large success, in both the US and Uganda many years ago. It's a handbag business. And honestly, times just became hard, and it was really hard to continue to make that business sustainable. But it is an incredible business sharing the gospel and teaching women in poverty, how the vocational skills around making handbags and making jewelry and all kinds of things. And so they've been, can go back into their communities and start their own businesses. And a couple years ago, it was just challenging. And that business, it was just hard for that business to stay alive. As Tom was mentioning, very similar story. But what the leader did, and I've continued to be inspired by her, is she just said, God continues to put this on my heart to teach these women these skills. I don't have the sales. I can't do the sales, but how can I continue to teach these women the skills and just to empower them that they are who God has created them to be, to go back and create a life for their family and their communities. And that has turned into, it's no longer a handbag business, but it's going to be a vocational school in Uganda. That is going to be opening here in the ground. I'm going to the groundbreaking in 2 weeks. And it's just amazing how if you follow the Lord's calling, he will, you don't always see the end result, but he will show you what you need day by day, step by step. And so, but like Tom said, I've got so many stories to share, but that one's top of mind right now.
Love it. Well, it's really interesting. I was talking. We've had Jeff Latour on the program, who's one of Alan Barnhart's right-hand men at Barnhart Crane, and he was telling the story. We were talking recently, and he was telling the story that he was at church, and the pastor was just talking about how, for most folks, they'll never see the impact of maybe the full dollar they give to nonprofits, especially for international missions and things like that. And he was thinking to himself, what a privilege that he's on one of these sort of 6 committees where he travels the world giving away, half the profits of the company he works for. And he gets the privilege of seeing that. And it's generated by his workplace. You know what I mean? And it's kind of generated for you guys by the family business, if you will, that you get to see these amazing things around the globe, and to participate in what God's doing. It's just a special thing. I can sort of hear it in your voice. Is that fair, Chelsea?
Yeah, Jeff, I think that daily. And don't get me wrong, I think, you know, we see the hard and the devastating, and we've been the call in the middle of the night when somebody's been, shot or killed or a volcano, and we're trying to get children on buses out of places. Like, we have been right walking alongside and on our knees praying with our partners, and just the absolute most devastating of times. But how I just feel like I get to feel God's love so tangibly because he puts me in partnership with people where I get to see them glorifying him in these hard times, and like what that does for me and my faith, and, hopefully our kids and their faith. I always, I hope that our faith is caught, not taught, is my term. And so I hope that continues to move in our generation. But yes, exactly what you said, Jeff. It is just such a joy to get to partner with these leaders and be inspired by them.
So
Well,
Chelsea,
yeah,
sorry, I got to jump in on the caught not taught. That next gen is one of my I just love hearing from folks like yourselves. What are you doing to pass that on? How old are your kids, and what do you see them catching from what you're doing, and how is that being picked up? What you're putting down? What are some of the ideas you can share with our listeners that's working in that arena?
Yeah, the verdict's still out, so they're 11 to 4. We've got 4 kids, 11, 9, 7, and 4. But I think, just the daily prayer time with our children, daily just sharing about the gospel and how it impacts our lives, sharing about our work. I think it can be the simple things around generosity, and inviting people into our home, inviting people to church, sharing rides, and also inviting them just both in generosity of time, but also resources. And so having them be part of those conversations, like this summer, we had talked about doing a lemonade stand and then having the conversation around what do we do with those resources, trying to help, them see what we do with our resources, and then also help them, guide them as they earn money in different jobs that they're doing to have, some spending resources and then also giving resources. So both trying to just, Tom, I'll let you kind of add if you have anything to add on this, but it's the simple things.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And you said the verdict's still out, but that's in such an influenceable age, that 4 to 11. There's their hearts and minds are being shaped.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Tom?
I think we're just, doing the best we can to be really intentional and share our faith and what we believe. And they're still too young to really fully understand the work that we do and what opportunities we have. But what we've tried to do is really teach them the value of money, understand that money is not given, money is earned, and really teach them the priority and importance of working hard for money, but then also the blessing and joy. This past Christmas, the kids work really hard. We allow them opportunities to make money instead of traditional allowances. They do jobs for us around the house where hard work equals money, and then we help encourage them that half of that, or a third of the money goes for spending, a third goes for saving, and a third goes for giving. And when they've accumulated enough, I think my oldest son got about $100 at the end of the year. We wanted to encourage him a way to do that. And so our church had a toy donation drive where you can pick a kid, an age range, and go get a toy. And so we took my oldest son Owen out, and he went and picked out a toy that he was super excited about, something that he wanted for his Christmas gift. And I invited this opportunity. Hey, why don't we buy this with your money and donate it to a kid that doesn't quite have the means. And so that was a really tangible opportunity that he got to see. He worked really hard for this money, and now he gets to enjoy it. And he was so excited when he brought it to church and dropped it in the box. It was just like this great connection of giving and being charitable can be really a joy, and not something that can feel like it's taken from him, but really a beautiful gift that he gets to serve another person with.
Wow, that's beautiful.
I mean, on this same topic, I'm spending a lot of time with kind of in this legacy world where families are talking about how do you do all this together. And you guys have clearly had a lot of conversations. I mean, you got 4 kids that are growing up in your own house, and we're talking about that. But also, you're involved with the generation ahead of you, and it's not easy to do. We live in this very individualized sort of Western society where it's like raise your kids and send them out, and okay, we did our job. Now go fend for yourselves. How do you guys think about this kind of thing? I think for thousands of years in most of the rest of the world, certainly the eastern part, is more, keep the family together, that kind of thing. There are challenges, of course, working with the next generation and that sort of thing. How has that been for you? What have been some of the blessings and some of the maybe challenges about working together? Not maybe I'll give that to Tom.
Yeah, working together, honestly, when my family was first getting started doing this work, we first did it from the lens of the work at Megmer. It was a granting strategy. My sister helped get the granting strategy up and running. And my parents came to my brother and I and asked, is this something you guys would be interested in?
Okay.
At the time, I was working another job, and I said, no, I really don't have
Yeah.
any interest in working with my family, particularly with my father. He's an incredible leader, wonderful person. But I always had this vision that I was going to create my own path. I
Go
was
do
going to
your
be
own
my own
thing.
person.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't want to be that guy that worked at a company that my father had started. And it was funny because I never pursued it. I did not want this, but the Lord created these different opportunities where I just got exposed to the work they're doing and kept feeling His nudge that this is the right place for me. This is where I should be. And my gosh, this journey has been way more fun and such a blessing to me. I feel like I have a deeper relationship with my family, with my father in particular, of just getting an opportunity to work alongside them, and it's gone way better than I could have ever imagined. They've done a good job setting it up so that we each have our own lanes and areas that we work in. There's not so much overlap in reporting and how we work together. It's really just been a real joy to work with Chelsea as well. It's very fun that we get to come home and talk about the organizations that we're working with and the challenges and also the fun stories from this. So from a overall perspective, it's been a joy. My parents certainly have invited us. They did not expect us to be doing this work, if you can ask them, but it's been a real treat to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think yeah, I'm sort of coming around to this unity in the family thing, and I think maybe I've had it wrong. This sort of independent streak that I'm guilty of, to try to think more collaboratively that way. I think one other sort of you've been collaborative with your family. That's unique enough. With your spouse is unique enough. Okay, let alone the generation ahead. So you've got both of those, but you're also collaborative with this larger community. Most of the family office folks we deal with are quite private about what they're up to. And I know that your dad's been vocal about this model that you guys are doing. And I'm sitting here on another screen looking at your website for the donor advised fund and for your investments, if you will, the for-profit investments, if you want to call them that. How talk about why that is. What is it about this model? Why would you create a website for it? Tom, maybe you can talk about the for-profit, and Chelsea, maybe you can talk collaboratively about the giving piece.
If I'm being honest, we would much prefer to just be quiet and not talk about
Right.
this. It's not something that we enjoy personally, but it's an opportunity the Lord has created for us, and we've been blessed to meet other folks that are encouraged and inspired by the work that we're doing. We don't feel like we're doing anything overly special or inspiring, but it's a great story to share,
Yeah.
and it's a great opportunity to invite others to follow a similar path. And for those that are new, we open arms and say, I'd love to explain what it is we get excited about from the investing side and the granting side from the work that Chelsea does. And so we've seen the website and some of the work that we do supporting other families has been a great tool of expanding our reach and opening this opportunity up to a bunch of other people. And it's really never been about look at us or how great we're doing, because that's not at all the drive or the function. It's really just been open-handed. Hey, here are the things we've learned. Here are the things that we get excited about. And if it's interesting to you, we'd love to help you in that journey and just support other families in their process.
Well said. Chelsea, what would you add on about, I'm sure in the giving space, this collaborative giving is a hot topic. How do you think about that?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked this question. I just giggled because I do think we had these conversations. Tom's parents have been so generous in inviting us into a lot of the conversations from early on. And so the conversation from the beginning was to be very much under the radar, and the intention was
Exactly.
kind of not to be out there. Even the website really has no, family tie to it or anything.
Right.
But how Tom said, it has been really neat to see the questions that have come and the way that people have been connected. It's a passion of all of ours to really support leaders that are facing injustice, leaders of color, and sometimes not as well known to the broader scope of philanthropy. And so it's been really neat to have people reach out to us from our website asking about some of the partners on our page, and for us to get to share that. So that's been just a really neat way to use the website. But yeah, it's been, I think, another thing about having a website and to be out in some of these communities. Like, I'm a part of a community called Professionals in Christian Philanthropy.
Huh.
These have been really great tools. We are continuously learning and trying to just be open-handed of where God is leading us and what God is showing us. And it's funny that we do tend to be part of conversations of like this, but it's been really neat to be in organizations like Professionals in Christian Philanthropy or The Gathering and be in these conversations, because those are places that God continues to shape us and form us and grow us so that we can come back and do this work how he desires. And so,
Well, thank you both for sharing that. And let me tell you, as I was kind of doing some research for this interview, um, it's very beneficial, frankly, to people like me who, Jeff and I are still running businesses. We've got children, we've got grandchildren. We're trying to think about how to do this professionally. We work with a lot of companies who are selling, and 80% of the statistics of people like the Tom, your parents that sell this company, 80% regret it, and all kinds of bad things happen by default. Okay. And I'm not saying they didn't have any struggles along the way. Of course they did. But it's so simple to me, the way it's set up. So don't just hide it, re-risk with a purpose, involve the family as they want to be involved, invite them if they want to be, okay? And then you've got the for-profit, we're trying to solve this poverty and some related issues with for-profit dollars, which are more plentiful than charitable dollars, but we're going to generate both and we've got to deploy it and we got to give people like I don't know. I just think God gave your family this sort of framework of scaling a business that you're now using all those skills still and inspiring other people. It's a simple model. It's not going to be right for everybody, but it is a model that's going to be right for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people are going to follow this. And I think you guys are going to inspire a lot of them um, because of your willingness to share that.
Hmm.
The good, the bad, and the ugly of it, because it's not simple to work with your family. But I just want to thank you for being on here to share that and for being willing to kind of put it out there for people to see. We will reference these websites in the show notes and so forth so people can learn more about them. But as we kind of get to the last few minutes here, one of the things we like to do is just leave a practical tip for somebody that's just behind you guys, maybe on the journey or alongside you on the journey. I think most people are behind your family maybe on this journey, but and this could be in any direction you want. But Chelsea, let's start with you. What's just some practical tip where people can start moving in this direction for somebody behind you on the journey?
Ooh, um, that's a good question. I just think if we it's something maybe I don't know if this is practical correct, but something that I try to think of as just generosity as who I am in Christ and something I try to teach our kids. If we can think of generosity as just who we are in Christ and not something that they should do or they ought to do, I think it allows just the opportunity for it to be just a really joyful experience and to grow in relationship with Him rather than something that is, forced. And so maybe that would just be a takeaway that I would share.
I love it. A perspective, a kind of a worldview of general. It's not if you get somebody listening to this on the treadmill, it's not a checklist thing. Ah, man, I got to get to that.
Hmm.
It's a heart issue.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're not quite there, maybe work on the heart issue and pray about, you know, how can I become more generous by being closer to Christ? And so it becomes an outflow. I think it's a great practical tip to work on your relationship with Christ so that it becomes more natural as opposed to we're not trying to earn anything by it. You guys
Absolutely.
already said it. Jesus already gave us everything, so it's just out of that thankfulness that we do this, not out of obligation. I love that as a focal point. Tom, what would you say as a practical tip for someone?
For reader or for listeners that maybe are interested in what it might look like to use investment capital to advance God's kingdom, I would say the best tip from my perspective would be to get engaged in a community. There's a
Mm,
wide range of communities that are growing all around the United States, around the world, through faith-driven investor and entrepreneur praxis, a bunch of different communities out there. If you find yourself able to connect with others, there's so much growing and learning. As we were trying to figure out how to do this as a family, there was many others in front of us that were showing us what it might look like. And just get out there and try some things. At the early days of us making investments, we made a lot of mistakes. We still make mistakes, but just getting out there and deploying capital and a strategy is really a great way to start and get learning and understanding what types of deals and what type of work is really compelling to you. And the best way to do that is just take a little bit of capital that you can take a chance on, possibly with donor advised funds, and see where God's calling you to deploy it, and find others that can help you along that journey would be my tip.
love it. Fine, fine. What do we tell our kids and grandkids? You're sort of the sum of the five people you hang out with. So go find a community if you want to be that way. Go find some people that are doing it. Jeff, any final questions before we wrap it up?
I just love the reference, Chelsea, that you gave of the Ugandan business, now going to be a vocational school, and just some of the local expertise and knowledge of the culture and the needs on the ground. And Tom, you referenced it too with the business in Haiti. Um, yeah, I would just encourage our listeners to take some of those stories and some of that thought, and realize, at least on the global side, there's a lot of expertise in the places that we're giving to and investing in, that collaboration and cooperation and partnership are just a huge part of the equation. And I appreciate you highlighting that.
Okay. Thanks for those final words, Jeff. And thanks for being with us, Jeff. And thanks, Chelsea and Tom, for being with us and sharing your story. It's been a real blessing.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
it's
Jeff.
been a joy.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
thanks for having us.
Oh, you
Yeah.
bet. And thanks, everybody, for listening. And share it with a friend and subscribe. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Generous Business Owner Podcast with Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt. Make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can find the guest contact information in the show notes. Stay tuned for the next episode.